Welcome to the Spiritist Society of Richmond. From the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life. Chico Xavier, by the Spirit Emmanuel. In yourself. Do you have faith? Have it in yourself before God. Paul. Romans 14:22. As they go about their daily chores, people must not forget Paul's expression, have faith in yourself. They should bear it in mind in the sphere of their obligations before God. Those who live in the certainty of the divine promises are those who have faith in the relative power that has been entrusted to them, and by increasing this power with their own efforts, they evolve with the eyes set on eternity. However, those who are discouraged as to their own abilities and place their hopes in human promises instead are like pieces of cork with no definite purpose. They are at the mercy of the sea, without course or harbor. Of course, no one can live without having faith in someone within their closest circle. But affection, a friendly tie, or the warmth of a praiseworthy devotion does not mean not having faith in oneself before the Creator. Within each person's sphere, God can do anything. But that does not exclude the cooperation, the will, and the faith of his children in accomplishing it. A father who mechanically did everything for his children would soon extinguish the finest abilities in each one of them. Why are you still indecisive if the Lord has given you this or that honest work? Do it correctly, for if God has faith in you to do something, then you should have faith in yourself before him.
Let's go for a prayer together, our initial prayer. Closing our eyes. Dear Mother, Father God, we pray today for the blessings that we receive each and every day of our lives. We thank you, Lord, for bringing us together, granting us the opportunity of studying, of connection, of feeling the loving presence of the Spirit mentors and guides who have joined us today. May you fill this room and our entire Spiritist Center with loving vibrations of kindness, of healing, soothing our hearts, quenching our thirst for knowledge. Let us feel all connected with our mentors who help us each and every day. May the blessings we have received today be shared with those who are in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and who have their names in the book of prayer, in our entire state of Virginia and beyond. May all on the earth who suffer feel the love that emanates from God, helping us during these times on the earth, helping us progress, helping us overcome the difficulties in our lives. Thank you, Lord, for the many blessings. And with your permission, we begin our studies today. So, what a blessing, friends, to have you here. as let's see here. Hold on a second. We gotta think about the technology. Don't let it longer. One more. We didn't do the greatest time in recording our exchange yesterday. So we only took some pictures. So thank you for those who were with us at the lavender field, collecting the lavenders to take home. Such a beautiful, pleasant day. In the moment for us to enjoy some, not just the therapeutic effects of the lavender itself, but the healing power of music with our friend Jose as well. So today we're going to be talking about the personal trainers of our souls. So you know that we are here for many reasons, and due to the fact that many people have helped us as well. And our trainers of our souls are guardian angels, spirit guides, mentors, whatever they want it. There's even a couple of questions where they say, why do you need a name? If you just want a name, you can just give it a name. If you want your mentor to be Bezerra de Menezes, it can be Bezerra de Menezes. It may be someone related to him or her, but spirits, we give them people names on the earth, right? We don't know if other folks have received names in other colonies. We know because Andrea Luis says they do. But this is something that we need, right? The superior spirits don't need names. It's important that we know they're there. So in this part of the Spirit's book, and I represented us as the children that we are at times, the amount of work that they do to help us each and every day is astounding. Oops. So we have here, maybe, somehow nothing. It's a part 2 of the Spirit's book, chapter 9. It's from question and answer 489 to 522. So all of those questions pertain to different aspects of our spirit mentors and guides. As we talked about the divine laws for the past 2 months, now we want to realize that we have someone that is with us at all times and how they can help us apply those teachings to our daily lives, right? Because knowing is one thing, doing is other. And there are many aspects of our mentors that we still don't understand. But they're not the only ones, are they? What kind of spirits are around us? We'll clarify what a mentor will be, what they do, but in general, what kind of spirits? It's in this chapter. What kind of spirits do you think are around us?
Highly evolved, less highly evolved, ones with affinity to our thoughts and our level.
And then Kardec, as the educator he was, because from less evolved, item 100 of Spirit's book, to superior, there's infinity, right? There's a huge amount in there. He described the different levels as an educational tool for us. So if you go to question 100 to 112, you can start planning your future reincarnations based on the aspects on yourself you want to work. How those spirits, the good spirits, want to look at the good spirits category and see, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then how I do it. And then having those spirits, he categorized 4 in this Spirit's book, question 514. And he said, first was the protective spirits. And he says that Those are familiar spirits, of course. You know us, right? Familiar to us. They have a mission to accompany us, those who they're protected over the course of their lives, and help them with events. The degree of perfection these protective spirits is always superior to that of their charges. So I cannot, at this point, return and be the guardian angel of my child, of my parent, for this time, because I have to be above them in a sense of evolution. Think about how, when we're dealing with people in daily lives, it's so hard to accept what they do. You just have to be there, encourage, model, but you let people do their stuff. And then instead of jumping in and saving them, you have to let them be. That we talked about in the beginning, the example. Loving, saying no is also loving. Enabling is not, right? Our mentors don't say, they have the fortitude to be able to restrain. Because it's easier to go there and fix and pay and put it, get it done. But then you don't let people grow, and that's one of the questions too. They say sometimes they watch us, they suffer, of course, because they love us. When you see someone you love not well, you suffer. But sometimes they need that to strengthen themselves. So they have to be higher than we are. And there's a question that it talks about, if a dad discarnates and has to be the mentor of a son or a daughter, he says that might be possible, but then they may ask a sympathetic spirit that is a little bit higher. All of the mentors in this Andrea Louis series show restraint, show moral fortitude. They're able to say, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do, this is above us, but they allow us to do them. And that's why we can't be someone's protective spirit yet, because we would go there and fix the problem. I mean, not for ourselves, but for others we may. So that's what the category is. It's Kardec saying they have to be above us. They have to have trailed that path before us to know. It's like if I got a job today at Microsoft and I want to go be the CEO. I never been CEO of anything. I have no business being the CEO of anything. I usually start at the bottom and get to know the company. Most CEOs are hired from outside. I understand that. But if you want to start from the bottom, you can pull up someone and put that much responsibility when they don't know what they're doing. That's why Christ is our guide and our model, because as a perfect spirit, he's a communion with God. But he's a Christ of the earth. That means there's a Christ of the solar system. There's a Christ of the galaxy, right? So there are people above him have trailed, have lived longer as a spirit, lived in a sense, existed in a sense. So there are familiar spirits. Those are connected with specific people for longer or short periods of time to be used to them within their possibilities, which can be quite narrow. They have the best intentions, but sometimes can be inappropriate. That does not mean that our parents or us, when we discarnate, we cannot come and help. We can come and help. But what we can do will be limited. How many times you see in the Louis series that a mother comes to ask for help, or doing the memoirs of a suicide, who rescues the guy, the big one who is doing what he's doing? His name is escaping me right now. His mother shows up at some point. So that does not mean they can't help us, but they're not the mentors. They can't do that yet at that time. So these are connected with us. That might be your grandmother, your grandchild, your aunt in this life or other lives, right? Because not everybody who was there may reincarnate at the same time as we are. Some stay, some go home. We return, they stay. Remember the train, the analogy. The train is moving forward. We hop in and hop out. Hop in, incarnate, hop out, discarnate at different times. We all in the same train. Sympathetic spirits are spirits who may or may not be familiar to us. Like if I have an aunt or an uncle that I like it to discarnate, they may like puzzles, they may like the things I do, and they hang out too with me. But sympathetic spirits would be, as we will see soon, later, I'm enjoying, we are the lavender field. There are spirits who are sympathetic to flowers, they're there too. There are spirits who are studying chemistry to make medicinal things in the spiritual realm, they'll be there too. They're a little more advanced than we are. We are not there studying the properties of the lavender, but they're like using that to help the spirits. So when we go to an event like that, it seems like we're just enjoying ourselves, but we can help as we were there praying, reading a message from Joanna, the spirits can be taken there and be helped with the fluids that we are doing. Nobody else was thinking about doing that stuff. So that's what's very important for us to get together and also bring that togetherness and the prayer to help the environment. And then there are obsessor spirits. In this translation, it's called wicked or imperfect spirits. Those connect with us in order to corrupt or impede, hinder our progress. They may be victims or not. We may be victims, but sometimes they connect to us because we did something to them they can't forget. It's a lot of the time an example, right? If I hurt you in another life and you don't forgive me, you stay, not ready to reincarnate. The plan is that I come and then you find me. That's very common in all the books we read. They find the person. We call them obsessive spirits, but they are our friends because they help you progress. Even though they're there, they're the ones pointing at you what you're doing wrong. They're watching us. Are you really doing what you're saying? When I leave here, they're there waiting and say, are you going to apply this? Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, very simple. Banal example, but this is something we do every day. So those are the main 4 categories. So when you walk around, there's at least 2 or 3 spirits for each one of us. So it's a pretty populated earthly environment. The book Roteiro, Emmanuel discloses the billions of people who are living off of the Earth's atmosphere. And you have the lower zones, the different categories of spirits who live there, like Andrea Luiz was, and there are different organizations in the lower zones, as you see, Memoirs of Suicide. They have schools, they learn how to be obsessors, they learn how to create chaos, how to incite people to suicide. They're very organized, and they study, unlike us on the earth, because people don't want to come to Spirit Center to study. Right? We want to see phenomena, we want to be healed. They're very organized. And then you have people here with us in the lower zones. Don't know they're dead. They're enjoying the food, the drinks, they're enjoying everything that we do. And then there are the outposts, which are intermediated between the lower zones rescue and then a colony like Lansolar. And there are different types of colonies above and below. And so this is all of the Earth atmosphere. So it's very populated. If you could see, if you could picture one of those blue dot images from NASA, you can see the layers around. Just like we gather the magma at the core of the earth, and there is the other part in the crust. So they are there. But today we're going to specifically talk about guardian angels, but I will show you examples because we have to talk about this because people don't like when I say this, but there are spirits who are enticing us to do things that are culturally appropriate, like drinking. And people keep fighting with me that they're exempt from the presence of the spirit. So I'll show you an example in the book Realms of Mediumship. So what is a guardian angel? A higher order protective spirit. I was going to ask you this question, but of course it didn't cover. So do you think about the things we're talking about. Do you feel their presence around you? Did you know you had one? Did it even occur to us to think when we have a question that there might be someone who could help? They're not going to answer it for us. We're going to see how they act later. Because if you ask a question in your mind now, should I do this? Your guardian angel will be like a nudge. Will be like, perhaps you go this way. Our obsessor will be like, do it. Call them. Scream at them. Say this. Like it's more forceful because they're trying to create problems because they're suffering. So the question that comes before that is, are there spirits who attach themselves to a specific person to protect and help? Yes, spiritual brothers and sisters. You also can call them a protective spirit or good spirit. So from the 8 billion spirits on the earth, each one of them has a protective spirit. So there you can tell the goodness reigns over evil. There may be a 1-to-1, 2-to obsessor. These people have multiple obsessors. In the book Sex and Obsession by Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, It talks about people who have multiple obsessors based on the actions of the past. Let's say someone who was a slave owner, for example, right? They may have multiple people still after them. Sometimes those people don't forgive and they attack the person, so there's multiple. So when we see a case of someone who is severely mentally disabled, from all aspects, there's a chance there's obsessors there in that process. Sometimes it's self-obsession. Because let's say you created something that caused the harm of others and you don't forgive yourself, you enter into what André Luiz talks about in the book, Evolution to Worlds, monoideistic mode, if you will, one idea. That's all you think about. And then you are like creating these mental images of everybody who suffered. And then you create the nodules on your brain, on your perispiritual brain. And then when you return, we return with difficulties in the brain, the nervous system. We can't communicate, we can't interact. We're severely autistic or mildly autistic. So those are things that we created to ourselves that we imprint. Remember, body, spirit, perispirit, physical body. It's in the book Evolution to Worlds. So there's no victims on the earth. It's just a consequence of what we did in the past, the companions we had. Because if you're well, if you don't have any guilt or shame, you come back more likely than not with a somewhat average composition. None of us is perfect. The only perfect body we've ever known is Christ's, right? If you look at the book of Jesus in the Home, the book Good News, all the apostles had issues. Chico Xavier had issues, and Divaldo has issues with the physical body because we decay, and the earth will only live so long with the blessing of medicine. Because before you have a toothache, can you imagine a toothache when you don't have opioids, you don't have a way to extract it don't have anesthesia. That's how you know how God is graceful. He gave us anesthesia it's a very simple thing that we don't think about anymore here where we live, right? There are places on the earth that don't have. So they're there all the time. And what is their mission? Similar to that of parents to their children, lead their wards right down the right path, give them advice, console them when they're sick or suffering, and support their courage in the trials of human life. So they have a lot to do for us. Most of us don't even know there is one. People know there's intuition, right? But do we train our intuition to listen? Is it intuition or is it just indigestion? Sometimes we have ideas that we think are ours as our obsessors, or we are living in a society that has ideas, things that are accepted, things that are not accepted. We think it's ours, but the influence, what comes right before this chapter is the spiritual influence, the spirit's influence in our daily lives. A lot of us are living the life of someone else. We're not aware that the mentors are there. And people know more or less about guardian angels in the Bible. People talk about my guardian angel. So that's a language you can use. People, may hear a voice in their head. A lot of the times it's interesting because in science we think of schizophrenia, hallucinations, and other disturbances as negative, right? Because if you hear good voices in your head, you're less likely to go to the neurologist and tell them that the voices are bothering you. If you hear good voices, you say that you're doing well, do this, and things work. But if the voice is telling you to harm yourself, the voice is saying that you harm them, you're more likely to go get help. So mediums or us, there's a lot of people hearing good things out there, having good ideas and putting in place, hearing, oh, go help that person. We think it's our fault. Call that person, send this message, reach out to see, and then how many times, oh, I was just thinking about you, or this is happening to me. Thank God you called. So those are the ways they can help us. But there's also a thing that they talk about here is they don't make us do things. And they also, the question is interesting because about how secretive they are, how secretive their actions are. This is the way the translation here was done. Because I want to read the messages. Spirits. One more. Why is the action of spirits in our lives so secretive? When they are protecting us, why don't they do so openly? Very valid, right?
Because they can't. Because you have. It's like sometimes when you do a mistake, you learn from that mistake. And if somebody just protects you all the time, go on, you just there waiting for someone to do the job that you're supposed to do.
That question is a 501, by the way. If you counted on their support all the time, you would not act by yourself, so your spirit will not progress. Since they do not see who is helping us, humans rely on their own efforts. Their guides watch over them, nevertheless, and from time to time warn them of danger. You know, when we were setting up our headquarters, sometimes I wish they would come and say, buy that lamp, paint the color this way, you know, turn off this. It would be easier, right? And I know people who have that type of communication, but you can probably pray and make a list. Does it make sense? Is it feasible? You know, they will come in into it on you. But there's a lot of times that, you know, would be like, oh, it would be so nice. It's like parents to children. You don't feed them French fries and nuggets every night. Even though it might be hard, maybe tantrums. You have to feed them vegetables too. You have to prevent them from putting their finger in the electricity, and so on and so forth. But you have to tread the water between allowing them to fall under controlled risk versus doing everything for them. And sometimes doing nothing is the right thing. It's saying, I love you enough for you to fall on your face for now, and you have to suffer the consequences so that you grow. It may be hard. You know? So do they leave us? So they're there. We established that they're there. And also, it goes without saying, for the ones who are watching first time, the Spiritists believe in reincarnation and the immortality of the soul. That means when you pass away, you're in the spiritual realm helping us, learning, preparing to return if you're errant state. So it makes sense to us that I'm saying they're there with you, they're by your side, even though you may not be able to see them. You know? Yes or no? Do they leave?
Oh
They don't leave us, but they may back off a little if we're not listening, if we're not. There may be times where we just need to face consequences.
yeah. I see like they are not just our guardian angels. They have more people that maybe they give us someone with less level, like the guardian angel, and someone can be there, but not them all the time beside us.
Well, they may be a little bit of both, right? They may be the first time guardian angels, and they're able to take care of one person. Like you're faithful in the smallest, God will give you more, right? It's in the Bible. Faithful with the small things, you give more responsibility on the big things. So the spirits answer these by saying, gives us in two questions. They can live temporarily, but they are replaced. All to say that when we feel alone, we're not. We say, you abandoned me, God. That's not true. This is just how we as children say that, right? The parents to their children, you hate me. You make them eat broccoli. You hate me. You know, you say no to the French fry. You hate me. You know, isn't that what they say? Or I hate you. It's most likely, right? So that's what we do to them. We say, God, I'm suffering so much. Where are you? Where, you know, they don't leave. They may withdraw when we don't listen to them and wait for us to be ready. So that's next question 495. Because it talks about how they don't hamper our will. They don't say do this, do that. They warn, oh, if you do this, this may happen. Every night you can talk to them, even if you don't remember. Do intelligent sleep. Every night we can pray that we meet with them. And we're warned, we're warned every night. But just like a friend, this is a situation. See a friend and they introduce you to their new partner. And you immediately know that's not going to work. Or maybe a second, you're like, we can't, you have to bite your tongue. You may say, oh, you sure about this? You guys, you may like dance around and be like, are you sure? We talked about this. And at some point you have to stop and just let them, it's not going to work, and you're going to be there to support them when they break up. I'm giving you examples that seem simple, but this is how people are living, right? Those are the day-to-day decisions that sometimes we don't make. We don't see the long term. In the book Action and Reaction, is it the Action, Sex, and Destiny? You have a couple, and you have like multiple love triangles going on. And the mentors are preventing this lady from committing suicide. So they go into the pharmacy. The pharmacist is not a medium. The pharmacy, in the time where the pharmacy people were putting together stuff on the back room, right? Legally. Now we buy it from the manufacturers, but kind of like a compounding pharmacy would be similar. They do the stuff in-house. So the pharmacist senses that something wrong. He can't tell, but the mentors are telling. So he gives her like a sugar pill. Yet she crosses the street. She survives the attempt of suicide, and then in another instance, she crosses the street and hit by a car. And then they're like, "Whoa, this was supposed to happen." And then the mentors call on other rescues, and that's what they do for us all the time. They're like nudging and saying things, and then you have that built into your system of knowing. Sometimes you make a decision, just like when we eat too much, we have indigestion. When you make a decision, you say something, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have, and then next time you do it better. So are they with us all the time? And he continues to ask this, right? He wants to know. There are circumstances in which the presence of the mentor next to the word is not necessary. Now, the physical presence, I say, is the mentor of SSR here every day with me or with us? Maybe sometimes when we're here, they're here. But they're probably doing the work, rescuing the spirits who we are able to help. But they could be somewhere else. Literally, like they say, there's no space. There's a comment by St. Augustine in St. Louis that says, for us, space doesn't exist because thought will travel. So we may be here. Do we think that Emmanuel was by Chico's side all the time, 24/7? Probably most of the time. But sometimes he talks about this, right? When he was in the airplane, he started panicking, and then Emmanuel appeared. That tells you that even Chico doesn't get Emmanuel 24/7. That doesn't mean he's alone, because when they accepted the mission to help you or help me, they accepted the mission to help you. So if you call, it's kind of like they have to come, right? But they're not doing this out of, it's not in here. I don't know what happened, but they do ask that question, is it voluntary or it's mandatory? Let's see. Mission and motivation of spirits. So it's 4. Is the mission of a protective spirit voluntary or obligatory? This spirit is obliged to watch over you because it has accepted the task. However, it's allowed to choose beings who are tuned with it. For some, it's a pleasure, for others, a mission or a duty. So they accept it. Sometimes we have to be told what to do by God, right? Some of our experiences we chose in the past. Therefore, we can choose this life. Someone who killed themselves twice in the previous life may return in a body that has disabilities, so they can't do it again. It just is. It's not like I'm saying anything that is incorrect. It's still free will. It's still accepted to return in that body. In the book Sex and Obsession, there's a gentleman and a lady, intricate, in the 1800s in France. They are in the spiritual realm. They accept the mission because he's so deranged, mentally deranged. He can't organize the paraspiritual cells and the thoughts. So when he's put in touch with a body, the body will necessarily have to be mentally disabled. It has to be, because a healthy brain will not form an unhealthy brain. Doesn't mean you won't develop disease later, A healthy paraspiritual brain will form a healthy brain. and then mentally deranged. If someone committed suicide and they're desperate, they have to come. And they both accept to return. One is going to be as twins. They don't like each other, okay? So if you don't like someone, make amends, because they might come back. Nowadays, the spirits are giving people what? Twins and triplets. Why? Because people don't want to have many children. So they're sending more at one time. Because it's hard. So it comes people who don't like each other. It might be loving ones, but it may be not. These two come back to twins, become orphans, and the one who is reincarnated, who one was obsessing, was a medium in a different religion, is moved to the interior of the country to form an orphanage, and those two are going to have to live together. One is deaf and blind, the other one is mentally disabled. It's like cerebral palsy type of stuff. So they can't interact with the world. It also gives them a break, because if the thoughts were arranged and aligned and organized, who would attune with them? Their friends in the lower cities. Then the obsessors come, or obsess them. How many people they hurt? They come to hurt them too. It's a blessing sometimes. It's like a calming down. That's why there's institutions in the world who do the spiritual treatment and medical treatment, do these obsession meetings, because they know there's an arrangement of lives intricated. How many lives we've been doing the same stuff over and over again? In one life, we do stuff over and over again. Imagine other lives, right? So it says, does a time come which a spirit no longer needs guardian angel? But before I go there, I'm going to read this one to you because we didn't show up here. Our protective spirits connect to particular individuals from birth. Question and answer 492. From birth to death. And frequently accompany them after death in the spiritual life. And even though numerous corporeal existences, because these existences are no more than very short phases in the life of the spirit. So the mentors stay and we come back many times. And they're helping us, they're helping us all the time. So if someone is actually, should say before birth, during conception, in the book Missionaries of the Light, you know that the spirit Alexander chooses the sperm cell that will go to the egg to form the right chromosomal compositions. And their room is shielded from the inferior forces of the planet. And then do it 3 weeks. And then Sigismundo is magnetically attracted to the egg. One cell plus one cell egg. That's why abortions are normal. And then for 21 days, they seal the house and protect Rachel, so that they do everything for the thing to work out. So if there's a problem within those, what are those first 3 weeks? Is when it goes from 2 cells, 4 cells, 16 cells, 64 cells, so on. Then you form the 3 layers and you form the little blastocyst that will implant. Those are the first phases, the most delicate, to occur. So they're trying to really ensure that that person comes back. And then they're there the whole time. They're called constructor spirits. They're helping you and I construct our physical body. That's aside from the mentor. And that was one example. Now, how many people are being conceived all the time? And there were half a dozen of them around the bed helping him shrink his spiritual body, and they're helping the first cells be formed in the physical realm. That tells you the layers of goodness are, because to be a constructor spirit, you have to know what? Medicine, chemistry, physics, embryology, to be there helping. The enzymes, the things you studied in high school, you never thought it would be useful for anything, right? Does it come a time when we don't need guardian angels anymore, mentors and guides?
We no longer need to reincarnate, I guess.
When you reach the level at which the spirit can guide itself, just as the time comes in which the student no longer needs the master, but it does not happen on the earth. So if we are here, we're not the exception. We are all children of God. We're all in trials and expiations. So if we think we're better than others, we think we can not we, but in general, if people think, oh, you're a different color, you vote differently, your school is different, your house is different, there's none of that. We are all in the majority of unions that produce children that we need guardian angels are trials. We're all trying to redeem the overdraft. We're not even paying the debts. We're on overdraft. Paying the overdraft protection. Paying the credit card bill. It's not. So the minimum payment a little bit more. So how do they help us? They assist us with their counsels through good thoughts they suggest. The actions of the spirits who wish you well occurs in such a way as not to hamper your free will. Their guides watch over them, our guides watch over them, nevertheless, and from time to time warn them of danger. So 498, 401. So when we make a mistake, most of the time we just ignore the signs. That wasn't going to work. Octavio, in the book Messengers. He was prepared for 30 years. He had a plan. He had friends incarnating. He owed to his half brothers and sisters. He was a medium, granted. Even worse, because if we say, oh, I didn't hear, I'm intuitive. I have intuition, subliminal mediumship, which we all have. And then imagine if you're medium and someone's telling you, no, go do this. You incur more. The more you know, more will be asked of us. We can always go back to the Bible, right? So let's think about what kind of spirits are around us again. We talked about the protective spirits, familiar spirits, sympathetic and obsessor. So let me give you an example of how their presence can help us. So this is from the book Messengers. In the left side, you have the mentor showing Andrea Louise, Isabel's home, and how her home was protected from the entering of spirits that are lower or the same level as we are. Because if they're enjoying the banana you're eating, the whiskey people drink, or the TV, they're kind of us and lower, right? They're the same level. Again, we're not better than anybody. Here you can see, you may notice that there are spirits everywhere. You see, following this guy here. Based on what he's thinking, these guys are attached. I'm thinking about hurting someone, I'm thinking about gambling, I'm thinking about eating, drinking, in excess, especially alcohol. They're there. But her house, because of the gospel home, which is shown here on the right, her house is protected. And that's why we say to people, do the gospel home. Do the gospel home. Just 1 second, let me check one thing. Okay. It's not because we are overzealous. We should be, especially on the earth when people are going a little bit crazy all the time, right? So here you have in her house, her physical children. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 incarnates on this. Okay, the rest of them are discarnate spirits from Fabio. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. He's his mentor, the mentor of her. The husband, who discarnated before her, is that here. These are friends, these are familiar friends of hers, from her family at some point. And these are the spirits who are attending her gospel home, who live around, who are just there, who saw, because you saw the difference between her house and other houses. So when you do the gospel home, your house looks luminous to the spirits. You may even have a sign hospital, help. When we have events, when we go to the lavender field like we did, the spirits put posts. They distribute flyers and say, oh, there will be an event to come, because they know we're going to be there and be able to donate. Not that all we're going to do is go hang out at lavender field, but sometimes we have to go outside and reach people. So when you do the gospel home, your house looks different than the other houses. And someone who is lost, who doesn't know they're dead, who is looking for a relative, who is looking, died, how many tragic deaths we learn of today. there was an accident. They don't know where their family members are. Maybe they were already discarnated but traveling in that plane and got separated. There's so many scenarios, and that's why we don't think of the scenario. We just think when I'm here, I do donate my time and my energy, my fluids. And that's another thing is when you are at home, especially if your house is not the place you were born, you do the gospel at home also in the language of the country you live. Because even though there may be spirits around you who speak Portuguese or Spanish, but the literature is majority is Portuguese, Spanish, or French. The majority of the people around you will not be speaking those languages. That's not what the majority of people in the world speak. So if you live in Lithuania, I know there's a Spiritist group in Lithuania. If she does it in English or in Lithuanian, whatever Lithuanian language is, she'll be helping more people than she did in Portuguese. Not that they don't understand. They don't understand, but they feel, wow, but I feel the good vibration. That is very different from hearing, you are alive. You did not die in your language. Right? Because if I switched right now, people will not understand. They'll feel the vibrations of love. The same thing when she is doing the gospel at home, she brings the children in. That's not the important thing. Don't leave them. Of course, you don't do a talk for 45 minutes like I'm doing. That's why we have the classes for children separate. She asks them to bring what's bothering them. These are twins right there. There was a suicide on the newspaper. This was the time there was a newspaper. Okay, you have to go get the newspaper somewhere. Maybe use the newspaper to wrap your stuff later. Because we did that in the past, right? And then there's a boy, and they're discussing what's happening. And her mentor is helping her open the Bible, the Gospel according to Spiritism, actually, to an appropriate passage. And then she talks about it. And he's inspiring the words. She's a medium. She's capturing only part of what he's saying to her, and she's saying part of it. She's saying it. Those folks next to her understand a little bit more because in the spiritual realm, they can have more senses than we do. And the people on the side are understanding even less. So it doesn't matter how loving her talk is, if those people don't speak Portuguese, they not understand less than if they did, correct? So that's why it's important to read messages out loud in the language where you are. Because Spiritism will become part of everyday life. In Jupiter, Saturn, and other places who the spirits are more elevated than we are. It's in the Spiritist magazine, by the way. This constant interaction is all the time. Everybody knows. You're talking to your mentors. You're asking for help. You're interacting, Will be commonplace by destroying materialism. We talked about this on the law of progress. So we get to be their presence, their counsels, and their protection. And those people can be taken to other places to be helped. Now, when we have protector spirits, they can also help and guide those with addictions. That's from the book Voltaire. This is an extreme case of alcoholism, okay? But Brother Jacob, who is the guy on the mustache, he discarnated and he used to counsel the spirit that you're seeing with the person who is drinking. Oh, shame, but it's only one glass. It doesn't matter. I'll show you. This is an extreme case. Okay? So Brother Jacob sees the spirit. The spirits have a conversation with him later and say, you used to counsel me. And we think coming to the spirit center is just enough. And you don't have real life because the spirits can hear us talk in our thoughts. And then they are there too, giving passes to the gentleman and to the spirit. So they did touch a little bit so they can be more aware. That's why addiction is so hard, and that's why we don't judge people. That's why when you have someone, no communities or NGOs that work with addiction, what do they say? You have to pluck the person out, put them in rehab, but you can't pluck them back in where they were. Because if you want to change your habit, you become who you hang out with. So if your habit is to exercise, look for people who exercise. If you're drinking, which is socially accepted, it's very difficult if all your friends are drinking and you're not, because people make fun of you. I know because I don't drink. People do. Well, I'm like, well, if you can only relax with alcohol, that's an addiction too. Now, alcohol has been fully proven by science that it is a toxin. It's toxic to your body, it changes your DNA compositions, it causes cancer. No matter, no, there's no safe amount. But it's a drug that people like the effect of, you know, so we have to tell people. And here's a less, and this is from a different book, from the book In the Realms of Mediumship. This is a bar. Oh, let's go happy hour. And some people you have to, because in the business world, sometimes you have to do happy hours to the business. So that you try the very difficult. But now the new generation drinks less because they have mocktails. You can still go to a restaurant, you can still go, but you don't have to engage in those behaviors. And when you're there, I want you to visualize and pray the fluid so that the mentors are there. The mentors are in brothels, the mentors are in strip clubs, they are everywhere, they're in stadiums. But here's the people think they're just having one, they're drinking, they're smoking, but the spirits are there. It doesn't matter if it's one or not. There's no safe amount. But when there's also the presence of a protector spirit, so, in everyday life. These are big events, but in the small events. I want you to think about a time where you're somewhere and you remember something, or you had an idea of calling someone, they're there. Here, Evelyn, she's not a protective spirit, okay? She's just a familiar spirit with the mission to help. Here, she is inspiring Caio to marry the woman he has been dating forever, because nowadays everybody just dates and live together. To give the security of a family, to have the legal protections. You know, so she's inspiring him during the funeral of the girl's mother. But it could be at the grocery shop, it could be inspiration for you to say hi to the cashier. Say hi to them. Or see someone who's homeless, ask their name. Give them the $5, but also ask their name. And this side, the spirits are there. There's only 4 incarnates. The rest you see is spirits. They're there in the birth of a child, because it's much harder when you are reincarnated than when discarnating, because now you're entering the matter. We celebrate much more births than we do graduations, which is when you discarnate, you graduate. But when you're being reborn in a world that is of trials and expiations, you are putting, it's almost Russian roulette right there. It's a lot of risk. But they're there, they're protecting that room. So when you go to this is a home birth type of situation, from what I can tell. But if you go to a hospital, if you go into a grocery store, if you go to the pharmacy, if you're going anywhere, make an effort to visualize the spirits there. Because remember, they're there waiting for us to open, and they might say the right thing, do the right thing. Very few, percentage-wise, spiritists are very few. And that's why Christ sent others to sow the seed. You're immortal, you're more than. We have our friends that are Buddhists right there, literally 50 feet away. But you know, there's the Louise Hay crowd and all the people who came after her that she promoted. Those are spiritualists. They also believe in exchange into realms. And that's why they put people to inspire the writers in Hollywood to write things that have you leaving your body, coming to your body, traveling through space. There are PG movies you can watch, like it's a movie called If I Stay is a movie that is good for families. Where the lady, there's an accident and she's in the ICU, but her spirit and spirit travel. And she's doing the right life review we hear about. She's going to the parents, she's going to the child, the parents is discarnated. Sorry, spoiler alert, it's an old movie. But you know, it's beautiful because it's exactly, she sees her body in the ICU. She has enough lucidity not to freak out, right? Because if you saw your body with all those tubes, you may be a little distressed. She goes and travels, she thinks about, she has a life review. So when we go to the hospital, we have to think about how respectful we need to be when we go to those places. We're joyful, we go help, but we also pray. We don't act as we like Sunday party, you know, what some people do. Nursing homes, they're there helping the people who are lonely. There's a lot of people in nursing homes whose family can't visit them. So when we go there, like we do once a month, and you guys on the internet can always join us if you live in Richmond. But yeah, when we have this mentality of knowing they're here to help, they're with you from birth to death and beyond, and they chose to be there. And then we can have the familiar spirits like Evelyn and Ernest in the image before. They weren't protector spirits per se. Remember, she had to choose between Caio and Tulio, and she was with both. So the protector spirits don't do love triangles like that. We do. So she's not a protector. She's a little more lucid, and she's able to help. So she and Ernest, whose daughter is the one now marrying Caio, go to the whole story. It would be a great soap opera for the afternoon if they ever made it. They committed 30 years. They helped inspire Mariana to receive Desiderio as her son. Of course, under the guidance of their own guides, but they were going to be there every day working with them, helping. That's like a training. For 30 years, why? Because those children have to grow, get to know each other, and get married and have babies of them. Because that's how the law of reproduction works. If we stop having children, none of us will be able to reincarnate, at least on the earth. We'll be taken to other places, but not on the earth. All right. So, do you feel loved by your guardian angel? Hopefully we are. I don't have the grace. I'm going to leave us with also messengers because it's good. Did they help clarify? I recommend that you go read the nuances of each chapter because it has beautiful, especially the part, let's see, 495, which have, because sometimes people say, wow, would I ask my guardian angel? And St. Louis and St. Augustine say, do not fear tiring us with your questions. Rather, remain in contact with us always. You will thus be stronger and happier. These communications between each individual and his or her familiar spirit are what makes all individuals mediums. Mediums ignore today but will show themselves later, spreading out like an ocean without shores to sweep away disbelief and ignorance. So he said, they don't get tired of our questions, even the silly ones. I was making fun of the call of the one, whatever. Yeah, we want to be respectful when we come to the Spiritist Center. We don't just bring whatever we want and take whatever we want. We have to think about, first of all, cost. We want to be conscious of the money people donate. Function is going to be used for what, and we want to be minimal, right? We don't want a lot of stuff around. And those are things that they can inspire us, and they can feel like, oh, this is good and this is not good. And if we start asking them the little things, and then maybe we'll have better knowledge. Especially when we talk about how we say things and why we say things to people, because it seems to be a very easy way to hurt, easy way to cause misunderstanding. So should I say that? And the insight will come, yes or no. Not necessarily why. And if you have a name that you like, you can name your guardian angel. Mary is a good name. Mary reminds you of Mother Mary. Questions, comments before we go to music?
The categories of spirits, there can be more than one, right? For example, a familiar spirit or a sympathetic could be an obsessor too.
Yeah.
In some cases.
I think they talk about this, but of protective spirits, there's usually only one.
Yeah, the only one.
Yeah, it's a one. But then the other ones you can have. You're watching. People are watching on me. People are watching a war movie. There could be 15 people in your living room. You think you're by yourself. People are playing video games. They're killing each other in video games. There's spirits there with them. That's why video games are so dangerous for children. We are using the internet to connect, but those are images that keep in your mind. And when your brain is not developed, what happens when you I've never been a video game person. Please don't come on the comments after my video game comments. I never been able to play well, or it never made sense to my brain. Maybe they had Sonic Hedgehog. This is how old I couldn't figure out that thing. Mario Bros. But when you're talking about like, I remember we were trying to play the ones with cars. People drive nowadays like the car video games. But when you are watching the adults do that, you do that when you become 16 and a half, which is questionable to begin with. You should drive at that age. Or should we find better ways to move people around? There's not everybody has to have one car because it's not sustainable anyways. But what happens when they crash? You get a new token, you get a new car. What happens when people die in those video games? They die, but next time they're there too. There's no, in your mind, you're living through the images and the things you consume. So the people are there too. That's why people sit and take 12 hours later, they don't realize how the time passed. And I know there's really no scientific research to show there's that much damage, but maybe that time could be better used to connect in different ways, especially now that there's no excuse. During COVID, I could see, it's creating connection, they're friends. But is there a better activity? Like there's people in nursing homes don't have people to talk to them. That's a better way to connect. And there's a better way to teach the child that they're not the center of the universe. And there are other people who have needs too. And a lot of those folks are parents and have children who can't visit or don't want to visit them too. So there's another lesson on top of it. So it's interesting. Yeah, we could walk around with a posse, our own entourage. And we don't know. And that's what's happened. Think about like the Colosseum and places like that. The Colosseum as in like Roman, When you go to a stadium, you're replicating that. It's a spectacle. So how many are there? 50,000. There's probably like 300,000 people roaring. That's why you go and you have that excitement. So you have to be careful what you think, because what you think is real.
Today's the third, but there's something. Okay.
So when just give me some few minutes. One more thing.
Make me a shadow of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. Where there is doubt, true faith in you. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a shadow of your peace. Where there is very life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. Where there is sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be love as to love with all my soul. Make me a shadow of your peace. It's part of me that we are part of. Even to all men that we receive. Dying that we're born to eternal life. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a shadow